Greetings YouTube and welcome to the Blue Corner. We're going to wrap up this week with a deck profile of Gishki, something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time in this manner. What are Gishki, you ask? Well, Gishki are a water-based archetype whose boss monsters are rituals, and this is the first true ritual archetype to ever exist in the game. Up until this point, the only real boss monster that was a ritual monster was Herald of Perfection, and I guess I don't really count actually Demise and Ruin. They were just generic ritual monsters based around some chaos cards. But yeah, Gishkis are the first true blue. Ha ha ha. Oh, I didn't even realize that was a pun. But yeah, the first real ritual archetype, and they're somewhat successful in this sense because the deck utilizes a lot of searching in order to set up its plays, because when Konami designed these guys, they knew for a fact that number one, rituals are hard minus in order to drop. You're like taking at least 2 cards from your resources in order to drop 1 card, so they have created ways to get around that or to make it much less of a minus in order to drop your guys. And the deck can recycle itself very, very nicely. As for what the effects these guys have, they're mainly about manipulating what options your opponent has. Be it sending cards from the field to the deck, graveyard to the deck, hand to the deck, or eliminating certain cards out of your opponent's deck. I'm not running Gishki Goose Kraken in here. This is just simply a straight up pure control build. I suppose Goose Kraken is a very good card regardless, but I just wanted to try running the deck without him. He's probably more suited to Hieratic Gishki. And we will just go over the deck, and that'll let me explain there are monster effects along the way, so this is probably going to be a very long video, and I apologize for that in advance, but not a lot of people really know what Gishki cards do, and in this video, I'm going to educate you all. So we're going to start with 3 copies of the biggest guy that is currently available, Gishki Soul Ogre. He's a level 8, 2800 both ways, so yeah, he's got a 2800 defense, which is a very nice number because few monsters can beat over him in battle that way. Just Blackluster Soldier and Red Dragon Archfiend as far as generic cards go. And they all have the same effective. They can be ritual summoned with any Gishki ritual spell, which in itself has a powerful recycling ability. And then Soul Ogre's effect is once per turn you can discard one Gishki monster card, my apologies, in order to target one face-up card your opponent controls and return it to the deck. So he is your on-spot removal. He doesn't destroy, he just returns. So he can be used to get around stuff like Stardust or Zembanes, and he's not limited to just monsters. If your opponent's sitting on a Necro Valley, you can just simply return that shit to the deck and then do your stuff. His main use though is that he is a 2800 attack beat stick that can be summoned by just getting rid of 1 monster card potentially. And yeah, don't underestimate the 2800 defense. Herald of Perfection was a very annoying card because he was 2800 defense. People just could not get over that kind of numbers. But he also had the kind of ability to negate stuff that would kill him. 1 copy of Gishki Tetra Ogre. He's a level 6, 2600 attacker. And his effect is once per turn you can declare 1 card type, be it monster, spell, or trap card. And at this point, your opponent must discard a card from their hand in order to stop this effect from going through. If they do not discard a card, then that card type you declare, each player sends 1 card of that type from the deck to the graveyard. So he's useful in not only dwindling your opponent's hand resources, but for setting up your graveyard in a couple ways, or even just getting cards out of your opponent's deck. Like, you need to get an Aqua Mirror into the graveyard. Call spells. If your opponent doesn't stop this, then you're going to be putting an Aqua Mirror into the graveyard, and they might be putting something like a Mystical Space Typhoon, a Heavy Storm, or a Book of Moon into the graveyard. I've seen some people force themselves in order to put limited cards into the graveyard because they don't want to hit some of their other cards. You can also do this with trap cards. You're realizing your opponent's playing Burn. You don't want to use your Solemn Warnings then? Well, call trap cards. If they don't discard, guess what? You're probably going to be knocking a Frozen Soul out of their deck. And yeah, just being able to put monster cards, and while it is a bit risky with some decks, it's also useful in setting up some other plays. I remember watching Dual Log's video with this deck, and he would use this card to send Fishborg Blaster from the deck to the graveyard, and then pitch a card and just do shit. And that's why Blaster cannot come back. And also 2600 attack is a very nice spot. Gets over stuff like Utopia and whatnot. And have I mentioned that ritual summonings using the rituals, you have to negate the ritual spell, not the monster that comes out. So yeah, they have to warning, judgment, or log you the spell, which you can just get back later. Anyway, one copy of Gishki Mind August. She's 2500 2000, and her effect is when she is ritual summoned between both players' graveyards, you can select up to 5 cards and return them to the deck. And that kind of effect is just boss. I mean, you look at many decks out there, they're all graveyard dependent. What does this do? This sends 5 cards from the graveyard back in the deck. Chaos Dragons, you send those Future Fusion targets back in, or just those Darkness Metal targets. They're gone. Inzectors, all the Hornets back into the deck. Exodia, all the monsters they pitched for their draw cards back in the deck, but they still keep their draw spells in the graveyard, so you just keep them 5 jank cards. Plant Synchro, oh, the things I do with Plant Synchro, just put all their stuff back in the graveyard. Dragoonity, put all their tuners back in the deck, and it's also useful for your deck because you can just use it to recycle some cards you want to use again, and you can also use it to recycle your limited cards. Already used a Heavy Snore? Guess what? Put it back in the deck. You can use it again. Monster Reborn, Dark Hole, the Solemn Brigade. This is a very nice one-of card. I would not really run more than one since you can just recycle it like all the other Gishki monsters, ritual monsters, but yeah, this card is good, and it's a real bitch card to play off people. As for the ritual monsters, I don't really like having more than 5 because they can get cloggy, and even then this lineup still is a bit at times. It's probably better to just stick with ritual monsters of just one level, and that's why when the new cards come out, these two are going to be going for a pair of Gishki Levi Anima, who is a very good card, but I won't discuss that just yet. Then we get to the non-rituals. 3 copies of Gishki Abyss. When this card is summoned, you can add 1 Gishki monster with 1000 defense or less from your deck to your hand. Unfortunately, these ritual monsters are not 1000 or less, but Goose Kraken is, along with the upcoming Zeal Gigas. But yeah, he's just used to search out your guys that are used to set up your other plays, such as 3 Gishki Vision, and then 3 Gishki Shadow. These both have the same effect of when you are ritual summoning an Aqua type monster, not just a Gishki monster, but just an Aqua type ritual monster, these cards can be used as an entire tribute. So yeah, your Crab Turtle deck just got more playable. How about that? But basically, Abyss is used to search out these cards, which are then used in order to act as a full tribute towards summoning either one of these cards. Plus, they have their own other effect. They have the ability to you discard them from your hand to the graveyard in order to search out either a Gishki ritual monster or a Gishki ritual spell. And this is what I mean about the deck having long turns. It can easily take you about 2 to 3 minutes in order to get your plays off because you're going to be summoning Abyss, which searches out this, which you pitch in order to get out a ritual monster, and then you pitch this to get the ritual spell, and you just play stuff like a salvage in order to get them back, and the deck just combos for days. And this is why it's really good at doing its ritual summoning, because it has so much search power, which is what what rituals really need in order to go off on a consistent basis, is more reliable searching. Because basically, between these 6 cards, there is no need to run Manju at the 10,000 hands, who is by far the best ritual searcher in the game, because he searches out anything. Well, you don't need him in here. And rounding out the Gishki lineup are 3 copies of Beast. This guy is from Photon Shockwave, and when he is normal summoned, you select 1 level 4 or lower Gishki monster in the graveyard and special summon it in defense position. Obvious one, Shadow. You can just summon him and then just overlay into a rank 4, which is a play that the deck did not have last year. Now it does, and there's a lot of good rank 4s. It's not only just that, you can also use him to just pull out Abyss, who gets his effect, so you search, get this guy, and if that's what you need in order to perform a ritual summon, then so be it. He also doesn't negate the effect, so if you've got a ritual monster in the hand, you can just simply pull out a Vision or an Abyss, or a Shadow, and just sack it off to drop your ritual monster, and you got a 1500 attack monster as well. So, Beast is a very good card in either the early, mid, or especially the late game, because being able to make 1 card rank 4s is always good. And then 2 copies of Birdman. He's here to combo with Beast. The ideal play is to summon Beast and then special summon a Gishki monster of your choice, like Shadow or Abyss, and then you have Birdman bounce that monster back to your hand, you drop him, and then you synchro these two off for a level 7, such as Black Rose Dragon or Gungnir, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, who is a very powerful card in this deck. Because you're always going to have cards in your hand, at least during most of the game, to pitch for his effect. And then the staple 3 hand traps, 1 Gorz and 2 Valor. Don't need to explain why they're useful. So on to the spells. First up, triple Space Typhoon, because this deck does not like face down back row. Soul Ogre can only hit face ups, so you want to get those torrential tributes and those bottomless trapples out of the way. Bottomless especially, because that card really hurts this deck's ability to recycle its stuff. You don't want your Soul Ogres getting banished. 2 copies of Gishki Aquamirror. 3 is the standard in High-Rated Gishki, but in standard Gishki, you can search this card out much easier, and you're just going to be using 2 copies in the game. It's not imperative that you get to this card turn 1 like with High-Rated Gishki, and that's why you don't really need to run a full playset. Plus, it allows you to make room for other cards. But Aquamirror is used to ritual summon any Gishki ritual monster. You just have to provide you have to provide equal monster levels in tribute, so it has to be exactly 8 or exactly 6. And then, while this card is in the graveyard, you can target 1 Gishki ritual monster that's in the graveyard. You return that to the hand to shuffle this into the deck. That's crazy. It's a +1. You make up for losing the card that you used to ritual summon, because you can just simply tribute a Soul Ogre to put a Soul Ogre onto the field. Use Aquamirror to put Soul Ogre back into your hand. Now you can use Soul Ogre's effect, and if you got another Aquamirror in the graveyard, the card is just crazy good. You can just recycle stuff, and it just allows you to keep a constant hand advantage. Plus, this is why you only need 2 copies in this deck, because you can just put it back into the deck, and then you can have Shadow search it out. One of the best ritual spells they have ever printed. And then 2 copies of Salvage, because we are running lots of monsters with 1500 attack or less. We are running this card. We are running, let me get him, this card. We are running this card. And I also hear we're running this card. So these are your prime targets for Salvage, and let you get these cards back in the hand and just continue your play. Salvage is especially good with Vision and Shadow, because you can just simply pitch these 2, search up your stuff, play Salvage again, and then just perform your ritual summon, sack one of these off, and then play the other one, use Mirror to do stuff. Or you can use it to get Beast and another card back. Just summon Beast, summon Abyss, get another plus. Salvage is just so good in Gishki. 2 or 3, that's going to be a long-standing debate, as there are pros and cons to each one. I'm running 2 because I just didn't have enough room. And then we get to generic stuff. You got Book, the Trinity, and that's it for your spells. I'm not running Gishki Forbidden Aquamirror, which is a super polymerization, because I just didn't have enough room, and unlike a year ago, people weren't playing so many high-level monsters on the field. It's mostly just Xyz, and Forbidden Gishki Aquamirror doesn't really do anything to them. Whereas before, you'd be like, oh, I'll take your Stardust Dragon and drop Soul Ogre. But yeah, now people just don't really leave level 6 or level 8 monsters on the field. It's probably just going to be a rank 6 and a rank 4. So yeah, that's why I don't really care for that card at this moment. So I am running some traps to go alongside my guys. It's just some typical stuff. I'm running a Pulse, TT, Warning, and Judgment. Just, yeah, 7 traps. Why am I not running Bottomless? Because I had it in 2 other decks at the time, so I just threw Compulsion as a good 1-for-1, and it's useful. It saves your shit from Bottomless. I suppose I could run Lance, but again, I had Lance in other decks. I mean, I had 3 decks built over the last weekend, and I wanted to get testing them with all of them. So 2 of them had Lances, this one did not. But I still do like the overall lineup. And I will finish this off by showing you guys my extra deck. These are just all cards that work with Beast. So you got Utopia Ray, Maestroke, the Sigma, it can sometimes happen, Butterfly, Roach, Pearl, Marrowgeist, and then for those times where you'll have an Abyss on the field and you happen to have a vision in your hand that you met, or you just summon Beast and you pull a vision out of the graveyard, just a gotchi. And then for my synchros, one copy of Gungnir. You can make this with Birdman plus any of the level 4 Gishkis. Black Rose, same reason. And then a copy of Catastor because Veiler is in the deck, and there are those times where you'll just go normal summon a Veiler alongside your Beast and just make Catastor, which is always helpful. This deck hates Catastor, by the way. Its only real means of getting around him is to either book it, dark hole it, or use Soul Ogre. So that is my Gishki deck. I know it took a while to get through this, but again, I wanted to explain how everything worked, especially Aquamir. And remember, people, as I mentioned before, when you are performing a ritual summon, you cannot solemn warning the guy that comes out. You have to solemn warning the ritual spell. And Aquamir is so easily searched that if they're warning it, you can just pitch a shadow, bring out another one, and then they just feel absolutely silly. So, yeah, it's a very good deck. I admit though it's casual level for now. We're still missing on a couple needed cards in order to make it really good. Like we're talking a 3200 beater and a 2700 beater that lets you draw a card every turn or actually just any time it declares an attack. And I think come next format, this deck will be pretty decent. Like I might even go so far as to say it's a tier 2 deck. It's all up to the players though. And anyway, thank you all for watching, and remember, if it ain't blue, it's not true. Goodbye.